Alcatraz.
Alcatraz.
Alcatraz prison.
Alcatraz.
Alcatraz Island Prison.
Alcatraz Island.
Alcatraz Island.
Alcatraz.
Alcatraz. Alcatraz.
Rebuild and open Alcatraz. For too long, America has been plagued by vicious, violent, and repeat criminal offenders, the dregs of society, who will never contribute anything other than misery and suffering. When we were a more serious nation, in times past, we did not hesitate to lock up the most dangerous criminals and keep them far away from anyone they could harm. That's the way it's supposed to be. No longer will we tolerate these serial offenders who spread filth, bloodshed, and mayhem on our streets. That is why today I am directing the Bureau of Prisons, together with the Department of Justice, FBI, and Homeland Security, to reopen a substantially enlarged and rebuilt Alcatraz to house America's most ruthless and violent offenders. We will no longer be held hostage to criminals, thugs, and judges that are afraid to do their job and allow us to remove criminals who came into our country illegally. The reopening of Alcatraz will serve as a symbol of law, order, and justice. We will make America great again.
US President Donald Trump has directed officials to rebuild and reopen the notorious Alcatraz prison on an island near San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge. The president says the jail will be used to house America's most ruthless and violent offenders.
It closed in 1963 because of its crumbling infrastructure and high maintenance costs. Even in 1963, the prison was behind the times. Historian John Martini says natural elements have caused its decay to speed up.
There's no running water. There's no heat. There's no sewage. Many of the cells have yet to be abated of hazmat stuff like lead paint. So these were all challenges that were present even when the prison was operating. They've just been exacerbated over the last 60 years.
Its closure was prompted not just by its poor living conditions, but because it was just too costly.
It's on a rock in the middle of San Francisco Bay. There's no fresh water. Everything from diesel fuel for the generators to potable water, it all had to come out by boat.
When it closed 50 years ago, the Rock had a capacity of 336 prisoners, but Trump wants it rebuilt and enlarged. That would likely mean closing the island to tourists who generate around $60 million a year in revenue.
Alcatraz is operated by the Park Service and welcomes more than 1 million visitors a year. Any plans to change that face plenty of skepticism.
This is kind of a known feature of Trump. He has a lot of ideas. People will go off and study them, then they'll come back with the facts, and usually it gets dropped at that stage. This has that kind of feeling to me.
Just an idea I've had, and I guess because the judges, so many of these radicalized judges, they want to have trials for every single, think of it, every single person that's in our country illegally, that came in illegally. That would mean millions of trials, and it's just so ridiculous what's happening. And it's long been a symbol, Alcatraz. It's a symbol of law and order.
The phrase due process appears in two places in the Constitution. The first reference to it is in the Fifth Amendment, which reads, "No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law." The second reference is in the 14th Amendment, which provides that nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The due process clauses guarantee fair procedures in government adjudications, such as trials. They also limit government regulation that deprives people of rights, such as the rights guaranteed in the Bill of Rights, and those that can affect the ability to participate in the political process. Two Supreme Court cases dating back to the late 19th century have established that non-citizens, even those who are in the United States illegally, are also guaranteed due process of law by the 5th and 14th Amendments.
Alcatraz was built at a time when this country was strong and it knew how to take care of villains and monsters. There are people in this country, as President Trump has said, who will do nothing with their lives but maim and murder. They cannot be rehabilitated, they cannot be saved, they cannot be coached in some better way of living. They are always going to hurt. They are always going to steal. They are always going to attack. And we need a place in this country where we can send people to visually demonstrate their total separation from society. The fact that they're not going to live among us and will never live among us.
President Trump says he wants to reopen Alcatraz, the notorious prison turned tourist destination in the middle of the San Francisco Bay. It once housed some of the most dangerous criminals in America, including President Trump's favorite gangster, Al Capone.
Did anybody ever hear of the great Alphonse Capone? Al Capone, great head of the mafia, right? If he had dinner with you and if he didn't like the way you smiled at him at dinner, he would kill you. You'd be dead by the time you walked out of the nice restaurant. Al Capone was so mean that if you went to dinner with him and he didn't like you, you'd be dead the next morning. The Alphonse Capone, the great Alphonse Capone, legendary Scarface, was attacked only a tiny fraction of what Trump was attacked.
So then one question is, one of the sort of hallmarks of Donald Trump and his media strategy is when there's something that's happening, maybe it's something that he said that he doesn't always want people to focus on, he does something else. Alcatraz, I mean, the Bureau of Prisons, they're looking at it. This could happen because it's the Trump years. But this is what he said to Kristen Welker yesterday about something really fundamental, the Constitution.
You've talked about this in the past of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from a prison in El Salvador whose deportation your administration called an administrative error. You said in a recent interview you could bring him back, but you won't. Are you defying the Supreme Court, sir?
No, I'm relying on the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, who's very capable, doing a great job, because I'm not involved in the legality or the illegality. I have lawyers to do that, and that's why I have a great DOJ. We have a great one. We had a very corrupt one before. Now we have a great one.
Well, you say you have the power to bring him back, though. Your Attorney General says, quote, that's up to El Salvador. Just to put a fine point on this, do you have the power to bring Abrego Garcia back as the Supreme Court?
Well, I have the power to ask for him to come back if I'm instructed by the Attorney General that it's legal to do so. But the decision as to whether or not he should come back will be the head of El Salvador. He's a very capable man.
Our Secretary of State says everyone who's here, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Do you agree, Mr. President?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Well, the Fifth Amendment says
I don't know. It seems it might say that, but if you're talking about that, then we'd have to have 1 million or 2 million or 3 million trials. We have thousands of people that are some murderers and some drug dealers and some of the worst people on earth. Some of the worst, most dangerous people on earth. And I was elected to get them the hell out of here, and the courts are holding me from doing it.
But even given those numbers that you're talking about, don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. I have to respond by saying again, I have brilliant lawyers that work for me, and they are going to obviously follow what the Supreme Court said. What you said is not what I heard the Supreme Court said. They have a different interpretation.
Essentially, due process is the legal requirement that a government must respect all of a person's legal rights before taking from them, and I quote, life, liberty, or property. Specific elements of due process include the right to a notice of the charges against you, the opportunity to be heard, and the opportunity to defend yourself. When a system of law ignores any one of these steps before convicting someone, this constitutes a violation of due process and the rule of law. This is not a new idea, by the way. The very concept of due process was originally documented in the Magna Carta.
Welcome to the NewsHour. Over the last few days, President Trump has repeatedly questioned the right to due process, a fundamental right guaranteed by the Constitution that protects people against arbitrary government actions.
The president's attacks come as the courts increasingly warn that the president is exceeding the scope of his authority. For more on how the Trump administration is approaching due process and other rights granted under the Constitution, I'm joined now by Steve Vladeck, a constitutional law professor at Georgetown University. Steve, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Let me ask you about that part of the interview in which President Trump is asked if he should uphold the Constitution. In the first part of his answer, he says, I don't know. What do you make of that response? Is it the duty of the presidency to uphold the Constitution, or is that open to interpretation?
It's not open to interpretation, Hamna. I mean, the president has taken the same oath twice, once in 2017 and once just, 3.5 months ago.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
It's only 35 words. I suspect he probably knows some of it. And it ends with him saying that he will, affirm, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. That's his job. And, maybe there are questions that can be debated in the courts, but whether the due process clause protects people is not a question. It literally says that it does. The Supreme Court has said it applies to anyone in the United States for more than 100 years now.
Steve Vladeck of Georgetown University, thank you so much for your time. Always good to speak with you.
You too. Thank you.
Decide to reopen Alcatraz. Can you walk us through that decision?
Did I say what?
To reopen Alcatraz. How will you use it? How did you come up with the idea?
Well, I guess I was supposed to be a movie maker. We started with the movie making and we'll end. I mean, it represents something very strong, very powerful in terms of law and order. Our country needs law and order. Alcatraz is, I would say, the ultimate, right? Alcatraz, Sing Sing and Alcatraz, the movies. But it's right now a museum, believe it or not. A lot of people go there. It housed the most violent criminals in the world, and nobody ever escaped. One person almost got there, but they, as you know the story, they found his clothing rather badly ripped up, and it was a lot of shark bites, a lot of problems. Nobody's ever escaped from Alcatraz.
It was a legendary escape from a place that was supposed to be inescapable. 55 years ago this month, 3 men pulled off the impossible, breaking out of Alcatraz.
Alcatraz was a federal penitentiary for nearly 3 decades. In that time, there were 36 escape attempts. 23 were caught, 6 were shot and killed, and 2 drowned. But 3 men, brothers John and Clarence Anglin and Frank Morris, have never been found.
Once they were on the ground, they went underneath the water tower and scrambled down to the smokestack at the north end, inflated their raft, and paddled away, never to be seen again.
The inmates used 50 raincoats to make that raft in a secret workshop they set up on top of their cells. Paddle-like pieces of wood and one of the life vests washed up near Angel Island. What was left behind in their cells? Dummy heads made of plaster, paper mache, paint, and real human hair to fool the guards.
They crawled out of their cells up on the roof and escaped into the San Francisco Bay, and that you got to give it to them. They broke the system.
Nobody's ever escaped from Alcatraz, and just represented something strong having to do with law and order. We need law and order in this country. And so we're going to look at it. Some of the people up here are going to be working very hard on that. And we had a little conversation. I think it's going to be very interesting. We'll see if we can bring it back in large form, add a lot. But I think it represents something. Right now it's a big hulk that's sitting there rusting and rotting. You look at it, it's sort of, you saw that picture that was put out, it's sort of amazing. But it sort of represents something that's both horrible and beautiful and strong and miserable, weak. It's got a lot of qualities that are interesting, and I think they make a point.
Well, Governor Newsom and San Francisco Mayor Daniel Lurie both had similar responses to the president's idea. It is not happening.
This is not a serious proposal.
I don't know if he's watching The Rock or what inspired this. I mean, you can't even come up with a more colossally bad fiscal idea. Nothing about this makes any sense.
Don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know.
And nobody ever escaped.